stop me and ask questions. So we were talking about yesterday, about the cerebrospinal fluid. What is the central nervous system? As you all know, that central nervous system comprises of brain and the spinal cord. So, and it is covered by the brain is covered by a skull, and spinal cord by the spinal cord is, spine is covered by the spinal cord, and this is called cranium, and it has got 3 meninges, and these meninges are the layers that surrounds the brain and the spine, and they are filled with cerebrospinal fluid in order to, and it helps in the jerks and resistance from the accident. So it serves as a shock absorbers against the jerk, the meninges and the cranium. You can just see how it is, this picture you can see how is it affecting, how is the cerebrospinal fluid protects a person from such type of jerks, injuries to the brain, and spinal fluid is fluid protects. So we call it cerebrospinal fluid. So this is very important. You can please note it down. It serves as a shock absorbing medium. What serves as a shock absorbing medium? Can you tell me? Can anybody type it in the chat box? The fluid that helps in jerk management and acts and protects the brain from any sort of shock and jerks. So this brain and your spine is covered by meninges, and these meninges are filled with the fluid. Can you name that fluid? Unmute yourself and answer, or else at least type it in the chat box.
Okay.
So, and its function is, as you know, that it protects the brain against any sort of jerk and shocks. So meninges, this nerve cell is connected to the capillaries. Even brain needs blood because that is the nutrition it receives. So these myelinated axons, and this white, and you have got white and gray matter in your brain, which is very important, which forms this gray and white matters are formed because of this blood that is being circulated through these myelin sheaths in axons and from the arteries. So the function of the brain as a control center was known 2000 years back by a Greek physiologist. And according to him, brain is divided in 2 different parts. And what are they? It's the cerebrum, cerebellum, diencephalon, midbrain, hindbrain, cerebellum, optic lobes, and the forebrain. So this is hindbrain and cerebellum. This is very important. You have to draw this diagram and note down all the parts. And we will go through what all are the functions. It's very interesting, the parts of the brain and its functions. So first write down this and label all the parts of it. What are the different divisions of the brain? It is forebrain, cerebrum, and cerebellum, and then the midbrain has got optic lobes, hindbrain has got cerebellum and medulla oblongata. So functions also we are going to learn about it. Draw the diagram, label the parts, and post it in the WhatsApp group immediately. So let us see what are the different parts of the brain and what are its functions. So the first and the very important part of the brain, all the parts of the brains are very important. It is cerebrum. So cerebrum is called as a seat of mental ability. It controls your thinking process, memory, reasoning, perception, emotions, and speech. It interprets the sensations and responds to cold. when you feel cold and everything, it's because of you feel this because of cerebrum. And all your thinking, when you're learning, you're studying, you're trying to remember things, your memory, your reasoning ability, yes, sab kuch cerebrum. You have seen that major parts the brain is divided into as the three, that is cerebrum, cerebellum and medulla oblongata. तो cerebrum का main काम क्या है? आपके पूरा mental abilities, you are speaking and you show emotions. Can you give me the example of emotions?
Anger.
Yeah, very good. So anger is one of the emotion. You feel happy, that's also an emotion. So all these emotions
Yes, sir.
are as well as the perceptions, the way you speak, your sensations you feel, or how do you respond to the, we were talking about the response and stimuli. These are all been done by the part of the brain, and that is called cerebrum. And let us see, and even this everything, heat, cold, pressure. Now the next part, that is the diencephalon. It is the center of sensory impulses such as pain, temperature and light. And the reflex action, we have seen muscular reflex action earlier. You have seen how we were talking about how, why do a neurologist use a hammer to put near the, I mean, when he's using a hammer and is hitting near the knee, how was a leg involuntarily it was moving? And that action, that entire cycle of reflex action, we have learned in the earlier classes. So the diencephalon is the part of the brain that takes care of, but the emotions such as anger is taken care of diencephalon, Arbaz. And then the center of water balance, even the water balance we have learned in the excretory system. You have seen how the water balance is, you need to have sodium, potassium, and all the minerals that has to be balanced inside the brain. So even that is being taken care by diencephalon. Blood pressure, body temperature, when do you feel hungry, your sleep, these all. And hypothalamus controls the pituitary gland of your body. And then, midbrain, it relays motor impulses from the cerebral cortex to spinal cord and relays sensory impulses from the spinal cord. Spinal cord, you have just seen that how afferent and efferent nerves, as well as the association nerves that facilitates the functioning of afferent and efferent nerves. Also, we have learned in the previous classes. So these are all midbrain that takes care of. Anybody has got any doubts, please raise your hand so that we, if you're not understanding anywhere, we can get it clarified. Yes, Arbaz, what is your doubt?
Ma'am, what is motor impulses?
Pardon? What are motor
No.
impulses from the cerebral cortex
Yes.
to spine? Motor impulses, you have missed the previous classes. In that we were talking about, there are two types of afferent and efferent nerves. So you have got sensory nerves. Sensory nerves carry messages from, supposing if you are keeping your hand on some hot objects or the thorny objects that pricks you, आपको वो चुभ रहा, तो that, how do you feel कि वो pain हो रहा है आपको? Because your sensory nerves, we call it either sensory nerves or the efferent nerves. तो वो sense करके message brain को भेजते. फिर brain से जो message आता कि you have to remove your hand, वो पूरा क्या हो रहा? Fraction of seconds में हो रहा. अगर आप पैर कोई कांटे पे रख रहे तो immediately आपका पैर हट जा रहा वहां से. वो कैसा हो रहा कि बस नॉट इवन अ सेकेंड, जिसमें ये नर्व्स जो है आपके मोटार नर्व्स ब्रेन से आपको मैसेज बता रहा है तुम, दैट इज नॉट अ राइट प्लेस, इमीडिएटली अपना पैर हटा लो वहां से. तो these impulses are all carried from the midbrain, from the cerebral cortex. Okay. So and they release these sensory impulses from our sensory impulses kahan se ja rahe? Spinal cord, thalamus, and these reflexes also we have seen in the earlier classes. Those who were absent, please go through all the previous videos to understand it better. So is it now clear to you, Arbaz?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now let us see what is the function of cerebellum. Cerebellum is, mostly, have you ever seen how does alcoholics, koi sharab piya hua aadmi hai, who is an alcoholic, how do they walk? Have you ever seen them walking?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
कैसे चलते वो लोग?
It
Yes,
seems like they don't, their muscles are not that much strong and they
they
walk
don't have
like,
a balance. Yes, वो उनका equilibrium, muscle tone,
yes,
ये पूरा क्या होता है when the alcohol affects the cerebellum. तो जब cerebellum अगर आपके brain का affect हो गया, तो you will not be able to do voluntary movements. In the previous classes, we have even talked about what is voluntary and involuntary movement. Can Umesh or Aisha, anybody can explain Arbaz about voluntary and involuntary actions? What do you mean by voluntary action and what is involuntary action? Who can explain? You can even explain in Urdu, Hindi, जरूरी नहीं है English में ही explain करना, लेकिन जो कुछ भी समझ में आया, can you explain it? What do you mean by voluntary and involuntary actions? Yes, Umesh, can you explain? Unmute yourself and explain.
An involuntary action is one that is unintentional.
Okay, very good. That is by the brain. Okay, it is
Yes.
controlled by the brain, like your heartbeat is one such example. And reflex action, yeah, is also an example of involuntary action. And what is voluntary action? Involuntary, so you have said. What is voluntary? Aisha, can you?
Voluntary, they done because someone chooses to do them and not
Yes,
because they have been forced to do them.
very good. You wanted to do something. If you're doing it
Yes.
yourself, it is in your control. You call it voluntary. But which is
Voluntary.
not in your control is called involuntary. Very good.
Yes.
So now let us see what does medulla oblongata, the function of medulla oblongata. So it contains the center for cardiac, that is your heart, respiratory system, and vasomotor activities. And it coordinates the reflexes like swallowing and all that, all the functions. 1 second. So its main function of the cerebellum is this. Do you want to note it down, or you have got it in your textbooks, all these details, or its functions are very important? Do you want to note down all these functions? So the functions like, swallowing the food, coughing, sneezing, vomiting, these are all taken care by medulla oblongata. So I did not get the answer. Do you want to note it down, or you want me to proceed further?
We will note it down, ma'am.
Okay, please carry on. So you want to only 1 minute is left. So this